Hey there, I'm Pete Townsend, and this is Money Never Sleeps. We look inside the minds of entrepreneurs and at the crossover of startups, enterprise, finance, technology, and life as we know it. This episode of Money Never Sleeps is sponsored by Philip Lee, one of Ireland's fastest growing corporate law firms and expert advisors at the heart of the Dublin and London startup, fintech, and crypto communities. On the show this week, Owen Fitzgerald and I interview
I'm Eugene O'Brien, CEO and co-founder of BigFan.
And
I'm Kurt Pittman, CCO and co-founder of BigFan.
BigFan is reinventing sports collectibles through officially licensed NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, that provide access to metaverse-driven fan experiences. And BigFan are based right here in Ireland. All of BigFan's digital collectibles are being produced in collaboration with teams, clubs, organizations, and athletes from different corners of the world. Eugene and Kurt from BigFan are the second of 10 founding teams forming the Launchpool Web3 Techstars Accelerator class of 2022 that we've got on the show over the next few months. In this episode, we talked to Eugene and Kurt about how their paths converged into BigFan last year, why it makes so much sense for them to be working on BigFan together, the art of the possible with building for the metaverse, and the challenges in front of them to tackle right now. All right here on Money Never Sleeps. Eugene, why don't you get us started by telling us about your backstory and how you got to this point?
Brilliant. Thanks, Pete. So, my background is in blockchain. I've been in this space for the past 10 years. I set up a consultancy back in 15, where we were helping a lot of companies, I suppose, do jurisdictional evaluation, as well as get licensing within Europe. Then we led into 17, where we had the ICO fundraising mechanism that came into place. And Pete, I suppose that was intriguing to me at that stage, that I saw a lot of companies that had very good ideas, but didn't have funding to show the practical applications of them. So what 17 and what the ICO fundraising mechanism enabled was a lot of these companies to raise finance and show the applications of the protocols that they were involved in. I suppose one company that I was keeping a very close eye in at around that time would have been Socios, that did a 60 million euro raise back in 17. I've played sports all my life, still playing tennis, played rugby for 25 years. And seeing, I suppose, the intersection between blockchain and sports and the benefits that can be derived from that was mind-blowing. So while in 17, keeping a close eye on Socios and seeing what they were doing, I then started getting into NFTs, obviously starting off with crypto kitties. Then that led me down the path of, I suppose, going into metaverses and starting to build out developments within the metaverses when I suppose they weren't as popular as they were now. That would have been late 19, early 20. So really all the ingredients were there, and all the different areas, I suppose, within the crypto space that I was involved in, all kind of really, I suppose, sowed the seeds for BigFan. And I suppose the opportunity that we had in front of us to enhance the relationship between fans and rights holders.
Awesome. That's, hearing, and I've known this obviously, that you've been in the space since 2013 means that you've seen all the cycles, right? And that you have that intelligence of noting patterns as you've gone through the last 9 years really in the space, which is awesome. Kurt, what I wanted to get from you as well was your backstory and how you got to this point.
So I'm originally from Auckland, New Zealand. I set out in a career in sports marketing and very early on picked up a senior role with the New Zealand Rugby League, which was the sport that I played at that time. And having got to that level, I wanted to head over to the UK and landed there in 2003. And from that time, it was very much about building my career. So on the rights holder side of sport and more recently esports, I managed to pick up some senior roles across the likes of Harlequins Rugby League, delivered a 2-year project with Sport England, which was around investment and participation as a pilot program, and then landed with Fulham Football Club around 2010 at the height of Fulham moving towards the Europa League final against Atletico Madrid. I spent near on 5 years there, very much focused on demand creation, fan engagement across stadium events, and then extending that outside of the ground and what have you. And then into looking at insight around the fans and how that would play into the commercial business, which was quite topical at that point in time. Not many clubs were sort of heading down that path, and we were one of the early movers in that space. And then from there, I left Fulham. Unfortunately, it was relegation to the Championship for the first time in 13 years, which was a bit heartbreaking. But as a fan, and but at the same time, Brentford were on the rise, having just been promoted from League One into the Championship. And I managed to pick up a role with Brentford at that point in time. And in getting briefed in for that role, it was very much about how do we set the club up commercially to make it Premier League ready? And also they had a stadium move on the horizon. So it was a move to a purpose-built stadium only a mile down the road. And it was about developing the commercial strategies around that move and getting those implemented across a 4 to 5 year period. Hugely insightful, helping to scale that business in terms of shifting from League One to being ready to step up into the Premier League was a great journey. And I guess that, the detail there is very much about relevance to what we're doing at BigFan, because I moved to family and I moved over to Dublin in late 2019, a few months before lockdown. And as we went into lockdown, I got introduced to Eugene, and it was very much a point in time where he had this vision for what BigFan might be, and knew the technology and the community around the technology intimately. But the challenge was to try and create a commercial proposition that that we would be able to take into my former colleagues and peers at a time before the NBA Top Shots had hit the headlines, and before Mark Zuckerberg decided to use the word meta and turn everyone's attention towards the metaverse, and be able to go in and help them understand what the potential of this technology might be at that early stage, and see if we could get some people to go through that journey with us. And that's led us to where we are now.
And who was it that introduced you guys?
It's a mutual contact, Dave McHugh, who has a successful talent management business called Lineup Sports. He connected us in October 2020.
Okay. All right. Because Eugene and I connected through Ken Coyne, and shout out to Ken Coyne. But Owen, you had also come across Eugene at some stage, right about the same time that I had talked to Ken Coyne about Eugene.
Yeah, I think you'd put me in touch with Eugene just around the same time he'd got in touch with Enterprise Ireland, and it had ended up on my desk anyway, because I'm our resident, inverted commas, expert on blockchain. So everything ends up on my desk.
Exactly.
But you'd already introduced me at the same time.
Okay. All right. Because I'm running the circles of introductions here, which amazing that. And then when you guys first met Eugene, what was it about Kurt that you're like, okay, this could work?
Well, I have to laugh because it feels like a lifetime ago. I suppose when I had the concept, put together, I kind of went on the road approaching rights holders with it. So you can imagine me with no experience in the rights holder side commercially. I had a fairly significant deck that I was going over with. I think Kurt was in around 40 slides to try and get the concept, I suppose, across in a clear way. As you can appreciate, Pete, with, I suppose, trying to get this concept across at that stage was an uphill battle, in that we had no comparatives, in that I was approaching rights holders with this concept before NBA Top Shots or before So Rare. So coming into them with a new concept, new technology, and explaining why it would be beneficial for them to take on this concept was a huge endeavor. I suppose while I was on my travels with my 40 slide deck, I was pitching into Shamrock Rovers, and Kurt was doing work for Shamrock Rovers at the time. So I was pitching into Kurt. Kurt has a previous experience in around blockchain and ticketing. So Kurt understood what I was saying. And I suppose he kind of understood too the barriers to entry and the issues that I was having. And that essentially is how I suppose the relationship was struck up. And I suppose being able to pull on my experience within the blockchain space, network, and the tech, and with Kurt's, I suppose, forte being in the rights holder side of it, and feeding this into rights holders as a commercial concept was, I suppose, hugely important for the project to be a success. And that's essentially kind of how we met up. and I suppose the synergies between the two of us and what each of us bring to the table to, I suppose, bolster a big fan and have it as I suppose, a full stack solution for rights holders.
Love it. That's great. And it's just looking at both of your backgrounds and seeing, Eugene, that going all the way back to 2001 with a Fexco stockbroking course, right? And understanding some of the financial elements of this, and then some marketing institute stuff, some more financial institute stuff, and then just hardcore 10 years blockchain, right? And then Kurt, seeing your history as an athlete, and not to sell Eugene short, because he's been an athlete as well himself and still is, and plays tennis to this day, which I know. But, Kurt, and then being and living and breathing in the sports marketing space for so long, right? It just seems like a great combination.
Okay. One thing I'd add to what Eugene said is he put me on a crash course around NFTs, having a sense of the blockchain technology at Brentford and delivering tickets and testing that out. We went on this journey of a deep dive and crash course for me and understanding NFTs, how the community works, what that technology looks like from Eugene's perspective, because while I had a sense of it, I didn't understand, all of that level of detail. And I think Eugene seriously threw me to the wolves and helped me understand how that was all working. This was at a time when the Bored Ape Yacht Club was just released, back in January 2021. And admittedly, I didn't hold on to my too long enough and learned some serious lessons along the way. But I think without that crash course, we certainly wouldn't be where we are now in terms of understanding it well enough to be able to play it in with some conviction and understanding, to a commercial director sitting on the other side of the fence and giving them some belief that we knew what we were talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In the last couple of minutes, Eugene, you mentioned the word right holders a couple of times, and I want to dig into that a bit. But starting off first, can you tell us what is BigFan, why it's unique, and why this is a source of so much conviction that the two of you have, that this is a perfect thing for the two of you to be working on right now?
Thanks, Pete. Essentially what we're doing at a BigFan is we're building a sports collectibles platform that is creating an ecosystem for rights holders, which would include sports teams, federations, leagues, esports organizations, to build new revenues, unlock new audiences, create new insight, and engage fans through Web3 technology.
And just to jump in there, in terms of its uniqueness, there's a lot of big players out there, the likes of Dapper Labs, So Rare, Socios, who are using elements of this technology in order to deliver specific outcomes. And I think where we're getting, go back to your question of, the source of the conviction. I think for us, we're very mindful that there's this NFT bubble. People are talking about this NFT bubble, particularly in sport, and the interest that's in it. And one of the things that we talk about when we're engaging with potential partners is, how do we help them make the most of this opportunity where it is now, but be able to land on the other side with this Web3 technology started to be being baked into their commercial model and their business operation in a way that means that they can get continuity afterwards and be able to adapt once all of that excitement, either reduces down or continues at its current level. And I think that's the really exciting thing for us, because we're talking about the full suite of that technology, not just elements of it, and being able to knit it together to help those sports and esports rights holders adopt it in a meaningful way.
Very good. And tell us how it works from the first step of your engagement with a sports team, with a league, with a club, all the way through to what will be the issuance and minting of NFTs that act as a access point to metaverse-driven fan experiences.
So the initial stage is very much about taking them through the high level of what this ecosystem is and how we see it playing out in sport. But ultimately, it's very much about finding out from them what their perceptions are, what their understanding is, what they know, what they think they don't know, or what they know they don't know, and being able to take away those observations and come back to them with with a proposal, a level of detail that helps them see over a roadmap of, say, 12 to 18 months, how we might help them deliver executions that build on top of each other as they take, their fans through a journey, their internal stakeholders through a journey in a way that gives them a solid base to be able to build on. And those are the steps that we take. I mean, this is all based around a scalable solution in terms of BigFan.io as a platform and what we have in mind for the metaverse in its first instance from a gaming, play to and gaming perspective. And whether Eugene wants to elaborate on that anymore.
Yeah, Eugene, do you want to maybe address how you're actually minting the NFTs and what the first release of this is really going to look like?
Yep. In regards to the platform piece, we're going to be minting directly onto the blockchain with our collectibles. So we won't be doing pre-minting, which would be, I suppose, prevalent with NBA Top Shots. I suppose we want to give our users as much as a real experience for what they're doing as possible. Also, too, with our platform, we're going to have, I suppose, 2 on-ramps where people can go on and buy their collectible with a credit card, as well as people can go on and pay through cryptocurrency. I suppose that was a strong point for us, that we want to make this, I suppose, product accessible to everyone in terms of onboarding, as well as usage and functionality within the platform. So essentially, you'll be able to go on, you'll be able to mint your collectible, you're going to be able to view your collectible within the profile, as well as sell it on secondary marketplaces, either in fiat or else in cryptocurrency. We'll be releasing our collectibles in either a bespoke fashion or else in pack collections. And that all really depends on, I suppose, what the rights holders want to get across with your NFT collectibles. What Kurt and myself, I suppose, are aware of and dealing with rights holders, that I suppose we provide a full stack solution. So whatever the wants and needs of the rights holders, which would be a team or a sports organization, we are very, I suppose, flexible in providing what they need within the platform.
Okay, very good.
No, I was going to ask, I suppose, looking at it from the outside, if you take a sports team, for example, I'm a Man United fan, they obviously do a lot of social media presence, and it's a big selling point in terms of signing players and building their profile and everything. But it strikes me that there's probably a split in organizations like this, whereby there's the social media marketing side of it, which are probably very keen to kind of be involved in these sort of things, versus the more traditional structure of the organization, which has probably taken a big learning curve from the organization's point of view. Is that kind of how you found it? There's a lot of interest, but you really have to take them on that kind of educational journey as to why this makes sense and what it means for them.
Yes, in short, the whole, it's the appetite for innovation internally. And it all comes down to who wants to be the champion of something innovative like this internally within that club. Say Man United, for instance. Yeah, if there's someone who wants to pursue this technology at such an early stage and be the champion for it, then we get together with them, we work out what some of the internal requirements are, and we go through that process and help them try and bring the internal stakeholders on board with a view of them being able to move it forward. And in some cases, it's not a no, but it's I'm not sure. One of the responses, would be, don't understand this well enough, but if you believe in it, then, quite happy to explore it in a steady and planned way. And, if we've got a champion internally and feedback, at least at that level, then, we can help them navigate that. And that goes back to that staged approach of some considered steps and helping them roll out some light touch activations, bring fans in a meaningful way, help deal with the narrative that's out there in the marketplace around cash grabs and impact on climate and these perceptions that are going on, so that they can get through it in a good way.
Yeah.
And that was going to be my next question, I suppose, is that appetite piece. I'd imagine most of the conversations are, if they're not, or they're not likely to be a no, but they're maybe a not yet. I suppose you probably have to do quite a job around then selling that engagement and the purpose behind it. Because I know we talked before, and we were talking about an example with Paris Saint-Germain when they signed Lionel Messi and they released a PSG coin, which had went through the roof for a couple of days and then was worth nothing a few days later. And it seemed like a pointless exercise other than to bring in money to the club. There's probably a lot of explanation or, I suppose, education around what real value it can bring by doing something like this.
Yeah, no, I think, look, you hit the nail on the head with that in the perception and how it's being deployed. I suppose we're kind of different to other providers in that a lot of them provide a fragmented kind of solution where they all provide a bit of it, in that we're trying to provide a full stack solution for rights holders. And to add to, I suppose, what Kurt was saying, it's really to develop a strategy with a rights holder and have it in a staged manner, that essentially we need to, I suppose, meet milestones and performance before we go on to the next stage, as opposed to coming out the gate with a wild campaign that usually, look, in our experience, in my experience within this market, usually might last a week or two, but then usually falls flat in its face. So I think we're really, Kurt and myself, and with BigFan, we are managing the rights holders' expectations as much as we can, that this isn't come out with one collection and create huge revenues from it. This is a staged approach that needs to be developed over time. And I suppose we do believe that every rights holder going into the future is going to have a comprehensive Web3 strategy going forward.
Hey everyone, this is Pete. Let me tell you about the folks at Philip Lee. A few years ago, I was at my first venture capital industry dinner in Dublin, and honestly, I felt a bit lost. I bumped into Andrew Tizali, one of the partners at Philip Lee. He bought me a pint and introduced me to the team, and they took me under their wing. That take you under their wing approach has been what I've heard consistently from fintech and crypto startups who I know have worked with Philip Lee in Dublin and London to help them wrap the right legal framework around their business, fundraising, and regulatory needs. And I can't recommend them enough. Get in touch with the team at philiplee.ie or on moneyneversleeps.ie/Philip Lee to learn more. I was listening to a podcast this morning with Jasmine Mayetta from Round 21, and I was thinking I got to tell the BigFan guys about this, because her comment was, when you mint that NFT and you have that first transaction where somebody buys it, that's just the start. That's not the finish. That is the start, because you have so much to do from there. And when I've been talking to folks about BigFan and telling them about the differentiators, we talk about the metaverse-driven fan experiences. And I know that you've built a couple of prototypes within some virtual reality worlds. Can you talk about how the collectibles, how the digital collectibles then become this access point for the virtual reality worlds and how those work for the fans?
Yeah, Pete rightly said that I suppose the metaverses, what we've been doing there is developing, I suppose, within the four main decentralized metaverses, which would be CryptoVoxels, Decentraland, Somnium Space, and the Sandbox, since late 19, early 20. So what we've done is we've kind of, I suppose, bought up the lands within those four different metaverses and built out our infrastructure. So we have a string of stadiums, co-working spaces, conference centers built out throughout the different metaverses. Now, you'd say to yourself, how does the BigFan collectible feed into that? So what we're doing with our collectibles is they'll double up as an access to unlock experiences within these metaverse developments. So to give you an example, we have a rights holder on board, which is a soccer club based in LA. So what we've done for them is that we have developed out a replica of their stadium within one of the metaverses, where what we'll be doing there is holding post-match interviews, as well as live streaming games and holding promotions and events to that. So what your collectible will do is it will double up as an access key into these experiences, where we'll have a multitude of uses, as I explained just there, as well as bring it even a bit further, that you'll be able to buy merch, more sporting collectibles, as well as attendance into events and promotions within those metaverse locations. So another way to look at it is that this sports club organization will essentially have their own digital location within the metaverse, where all their fans can meet up and partake in events.
Fascinating. And, what it feels like is just enabling fans to get closer to the teams they love. And you don't have to be able to go to a stadium anymore to do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we find, I suppose, that experience is like we're only at the start of building these experiences. We, I suppose, envision that these experiences are going to get a lot more immersive and a lot more interactive.
I think just on what Eugene's saying there, if you go back to the example I would use before about Man United, and we've got this global connection with fans that's being driven by social media, right? In a push and pull sense, a read and write sense. Whereas now, can you imagine, Alan, before you sit down and watch Man United play on TV live, to be able to jump into a clubhouse within the metaverse and meet up with other Man United fans from around the globe and have a chat with them, and potentially, if it's run by the club, they're able to run a live feed and a pre-match interview that's exclusive for that group of people that's in that space that have got together before they then, step out and go back to watching it in that linear TV sense, because that's where the rights are held at the moment. To bring it to life, one of the examples that, that we touch on when we're talking to rights holders about, what the art of the possible is at the current point in time with the technology. Weave in what Eugene's talking about in terms of access into those spaces, and it changes the game quite a lot. It shows that this technology can go a hell of a lot further than than what we can do at the moment. So it's really
Absolutely.
exciting. I get excited about it.
It's really exciting because you see it with like the different clubs, like Man City. Obviously, they built that new tunnel with the kind of wall or glass walls where you can see into the dressing rooms if you're the fans. And when they rebuilt the Cowboys Stadium in Dallas, they built it with they were slightly below ground level, the premium kind of boxes, so you're at like eye level with the pitch and stuff if you're paying the kind of premium price. But again, all about that building a better physical experience. But like that, if I'll never get to a game, then I don't get the benefit of any of that. But like to your example, that'd be really cool to go into some metaverse or some sort of immersive experience whereby I'm able to see in or engage with other fans or even players or whatever ahead of a game. I think that'd be really cool, or after the game, or different events around particular kind of programs or whatever. That'd be really cool.
I think I guess the other thing here is that there's the split in terms of we all want different things based on different generations, right? And so one of the things we're working on is a gaming experience in the sandbox, and it might be that the younger generation who aren't inclined to jump into this metaverse space at a meetup party like we just talked about for say Man United, the younger ones want to jump in and play this game with an avatar, running around with their Man United shirt on that they've been able to apply to it in a gaming experience. And actually that Man United shirt, because of the properties in it, gives them more speed or gives them more accuracy as they're exploring this space. And I guess that's where our concept of BigFan Sports World comes into play, that we're sort of crafting out at the moment within the sandbox metaverse.
And myself and Pete have talked about it a number of times on the podcast around when we're talking about Fortnite. And obviously you've seen the artists like Travis Scott and likes doing the shows in Fortnite and creating that kind of virtual experience for their fans. So it seems like you guys are somewhere then in the middle. That was an entirely virtual world, and then you're dealing with a bricks and mortar kind of physical team or a partner that you're working with, and trying to combine, I suppose, bringing the fans from that kind of, virtual only, that younger generation, to the older generation who are used to the kind of, going to the match, and trying to combine both. It seems like a big ask, but it seems like a great opportunity at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose what we identified as well is, I suppose, with the younger generations, especially the alpha generations, in that, I suppose, look, we know about the prevalence of Roblox and Minecraft. And yeah, my 3 kids all play Roblox and Minecraft. And I suppose the significance of it in that these are metaverses that essentially that they are playing in. And what they usually do is go in initially in a creative sense. Then it's more of a social aspect to it. And then the e-commerce element comes into it. So we envision that actually the younger generation of fans coming up are going to demand this interactivity and immersiveness with their rights holders. based on the experiences that they're building, I suppose, through Roblox and Minecraft going forward.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's fascinating stuff because my imagination's running wild. Now, Owen and I have talked about before on this podcast that, what I really want, I think I've shared this with you guys, is the dynamic NFTs, right? The dynamic sports collectibles where when in real time, when a player hits a home run, that the expression on their player card, their digital player card changes, right? And shows them happy or shows them with a video recap of the high five at home plate. Right? That's what I want. And I'm thinking about something else that I want now too. So I'll set the bar really high. You guys have heard, obviously, I'm a big fan. I did it again. You guys know.
Thank you.
You guys know I'm a big fan of Ready Player One. Okay. And where you've got haptic gloves in this VR environment. I want the haptic socks, that go up to my knees. Okay. And past my knees so that I can do the keepy uppy contest in the virtual stadium with Ronaldo. Okay. And I want to be able to have that experience wearing VR goggles. Now, for that to take place in terms of the five senses in VR, and that if you think about how technology has come so far, we've got obviously the sense of hearing, right? Pretty good in terms of virtual experience and stereo and surround sound and those types of things. The sense of seeing, visual. One problem with VR headsets is that they don't actually track your eyes yet, but they're coming. And that's why people get a little bit of motion sickness after coming out of a VR headset. You've got the sense of touch, very early days still in terms of being able to touch with sensors all around your fingers and touch in a virtual environment, but it's getting there. Taste and smell, I don't even want to go there yet, right? Because it's just not interesting to me in a virtual environment. I think smell would probably be the easiest thing to do first, but it's like what you walk into a virtual bakery and you could smell cookies. Wonderful. Great. Actually, that would be pretty good from an e-commerce perspective. You want to walk through a dressing room tunnel and smell sweat? I'm not there yet. Okay. So imagination clearly going wild here, guys. In order to get to that experience, we need technology to move along. You guys need to move along at the same time with that. Are there things that you've identified in terms of technology, Eugene, probably specifically, that you think will unlock more value here with the BigFan brand as it grows?
Yeah, look, with BigFan, I suppose we want to be at the forefront of any innovations that are out. And I suppose it's keeping track with those innovations. But I think your analogies there and observations are totally on point in regards, I suppose, to the VR goggles that we see the VR element, I suppose, getting a lot more popular. I do know that Apple are coming out with their VR goggles within the next 6 months. Seemingly the tech that they have in it, that they do track your eyes within it. Cool. And it's going to be a game changer, I suppose, within the VR world. I would equate, I suppose, the introduction of these VR goggles to the introduction of the iPhone and what that did for adoption, I suppose, for people using the internet and that accessibility at the moment. So what we find is in some of the metaverses that we're in, they have the VR component as well, but it's just not there yet in accessibility and with the VR goggles. So, but we see that that's going to increase a lot more, obviously, with the Apple goggles coming down the line. Also, two areas that we're exploring at the moment is in around the augmented reality and what we can do there, and to make the NFTs actually seem real and pop out of your phone where you can actually interact with them. So we're in the process of partnering with an AR company at the moment that has those capabilities. Then moving it a bit further on to another thing that you brought up, Pete, in around the dynamic stats, which is another area that we're really pushing, and also in terms in talks of partnership with a company. As you said, essentially that when a player scores a goal on the pitch, that can be reflected onto their card. So that's another area that we're actively working on. And the tech is there with the API feeds that we're doing. So we're working through that as well. We'll have more information around that in the coming months. As well as then in the metaverse developments that we're dealing in the metaverses. So we're building in the 4 main metaverses, but we're expanding that list quickly in that there's new metaverses now coming out. Board API Club are dropping one at the weekend called the Other Side. We're also dealing with a number of other metaverses that really we're pushing them to the max of their functionalities. So yeah, we'd like to think that BigFan is at the forefront of, I suppose, tech in regards to all the areas that are important to us at the moment.
It's a fantastic opportunity. It's a huge, huge space. And, it's, you got to go out and grab it, right? And it sounds like you guys are doing that. Bring it back to the here and now. What's the number one focus for the rest of this year?
The main focus is, this year, I suppose, if we kind of broken up into three, is the successful launch of our platform, scaling the team, and also implementing a utility token that will incentivize usage throughout our platform. So those would be the three headline items that we're trying to get across on 22.
Very good. And then the biggest challenge that you see it?
Biggest challenge would lie in around the current market and where it's heading. So it's really, I suppose, coming out with selling out our collections and keeping a very managed approach to the deployment of those collections. But more importantly, I suppose showing true utility with our collectibles is our biggest challenge to maintain that.
Echo what Eugene's saying in terms of adoption. Adoption by the decision makers in the clubs and teams and competitions, but also this appetite for adoption from the general public. And we look at two different market segments in terms of sports first fans and the crypto community, and they're very different expectations and levels of knowledge. And so that's one that we're sort of carefully navigating our way through at the moment as far as challenge goes.
Very good. Very good. And it's the here and now is obviously, big focus and getting over the first hurdles as a business. And it feels like, or it is that sports fans' relationships with their clubs, with their teams, with their leagues is, universal. And that regardless of how the crypto markets are faring, and this, running parallel to that is sports fans' relationships with their leagues and clubs and teams, and they want to get closer to them. And I think that's something that's something that's permanent and that will continue. Markets will go up and down, right? But it's enabling this all to become that brand that really connects with fans, which I think is going to be awesome to see how you guys accelerate with this, right? Owen, we're at the point of the podcast where I know that you like to ask our final question of the conversation. Yep. Would you like to do the honors?
I will, of course. Eugene and Kurt, very enjoyable experience chatting to you guys today. What's one thing people wouldn't expect to know about either of you?
I know, Kurt, you were eager to answer this first.
Okay, all right. I'll clarify. It is a New Zealand accent, not an Australian one.
Is that all that you have to share?
That's all I have to share right now. This is a question I really don't. I'm not great with this question. Yeah, you've had some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, no. I suppose, look, coming from myself is that what a lot of people would know about me is that I'm actually super religious. So that's one thing that people wouldn't know about me.
Always good to have faith,
Yeah,
absolutely. Kurt, there's nothing else that you're willing to share?
Willing.
There are things that I know about you that I won't share.
I look, I'm enjoying the ride. I mean, this is. I've always been someone who likes new technology, but this has just taken me to another level. And getting my head around this stuff has been a challenge, but a really exciting one. And the more I dive into this, the more it's sucking me in further. So to be able to innovate with technology at a stage where it's not mainstream, it's only just popped its head up is phenomenal. And I might project some confidence around this, but certainly, each day I'm learning something more. I think, what we're doing with Techstars, with the launch pool Web3 Techstars program and racing, literally racing through in an accelerator fashion has been, I guess, probably added more value for me in terms of my knowledge of the space and also, I guess, understanding where I sit in that whole world in terms of knowledge. I'm surprised at how much I know compared to others. So that's probably a little bit of a revelation for me.
Absolutely. No, it does help to go down the rabbit hole. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. for the chat today. Really, really enjoyed it, and expecting big things from BigFan. So keep it up, and I know that we'll be talking tomorrow.
Thanks, Pete. Really
Thanks
appreciate
very
it.
much,
All right.
Pete.
Take care,
Thanks,
gents.
Alan.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Owen.
Appreciate it, guys.
That does it for this week, folks. Thanks to Eugene O'Brien and Kurt Pittman for opening up their minds to help us figure out why they do what they do. Links to get in touch with Eugene and Kurt and learn more about BigFan are in the show notes on our website, moneyneversleeps.ie, so check us out online. Also, thanks to Conan Brophy from Create Sound for mixing and editing this episode. Conan is an excellent media man to get in touch with when you're thinking about launching your own podcast. As for me, I'm an early stage startup investor and advisor focused on where fintech meets crypto and crypto meets Web3. If you'd like to talk to me about your business, drop me a line on info@moneyneversleeps.ie. Finally, till next time, thanks for listening. See ya!